On the dry and dying planet Zirath, nothing was easy anymore. The land had turned gray. Rivers had turned into cracks, and food had become more valuable than gold. Among the many who suffered was Lura, a gentle alien mother with soft blue skin and large silver eyes. She had once been part of a respected family, but now she had nothing left except her 2 little daughters. They were thin, hungry, and always asking when they would eat again. Every time they asked, her heart broke a little more. The markets that once shined with life were now empty. The trading halls stood silent, and even the wind felt weak as it moved across the broken stone streets. Lura held her youngest daughter in her arms while her older one walked beside her, holding a piece of cloth she used as a doll. They had not eaten a full meal in many days. She looked around for anything she could trade, but there was nothing left. For months she had tried to sell small tools, her jewelry, even the few things her husband had left behind before the sickness took him. Everything was gone. The people she once called neighbors now hid inside their shelters, afraid someone might ask them for food they didn't have. Then, one gray morning, a strange sound filled the sky, a low hum that grew louder and louder. Everyone looked up. A large metal shape broke through the clouds. It was a human ship. It had been years since anyone on Zirath had seen humans. Most aliens whispered that humans had left the outer colonies after the Great War, that they never returned. But now one of their ships was here. Lura felt both fear and hope. She had heard stories of humans being brave and kind, yet also powerful and strange. As the ship landed outside the ruined city, a dust storm rose around it. When the air cleared, figures in dark suits stepped out. Their flags carried the symbol of Earth, the blue circle and the bright white star. The people gathered around carefully, watching from a distance. Some shouted warnings, others whispered prayers, but Lura didn't wait. She thought of her daughters. She thought of their small hands, their empty stomachs, and their soft crying at night. She took the only thing she had left, a crystal relic that had been in her family for generations. It was a glowing stone carved with gentle swirls of light. Her grandmother had said it was a gift from the ancient builders of their world, a sign of life and energy. Now it was all she had left. She wrapped it in cloth and walked toward the human camp. Her heart beat hard in her chest. The humans were setting up metal boxes and machines, their lights blinking in the dust. Guards stood nearby, but when she approached, one man noticed her. He was tall, with brown eyes and a tired but kind face. His name was Captain Daniel Ward. He raised his hand to stop the guards and stepped forward. "Are you in need of help?" he asked through a translator device. Lura bowed her head and opened the cloth. The crystal glowed faintly in her shaking hands. "I will trade this," she said softly, "for food and water for my daughters." Daniel looked at her, confused. "You don't have to trade. We are here to give aid," but she shook her head. "Please take it. It is worth something. I cannot accept charity." He could see her pride. She was not begging. She was offering the last piece of her world's honor. The small girls stood behind her, watching quietly, their eyes wide with hunger and fear. Daniel sighed, then slowly took the crystal. He handed her a box filled with food rations, clean water packs, and a few small medicine tubes. "For your children," he said gently. Lura nodded, her eyes wet. "Thank you, human. May your heart stay full even when the world is empty." She bowed again and left, clutching the supplies close as her daughters ran ahead, smiling for the first time in weeks. That night, while the wind blew cold outside his camp, Daniel sat by the light of his scanner, holding the crystal. He couldn't stop thinking about her face, the way she had refused to take without giving. It reminded him of his own mother back on Earth, who had raised him alone through hard years, never asking for help even when she needed it most. He placed the crystal on the table. His science officer, a quiet man named Lynn, walked in. "What's that?" Lynn asked. "A relic," Daniel said. "She traded it for food." I couldn't say no. Lynn scanned it with a small device. His eyes widened. "Captain, this isn't just a relic. It's a power core, an ancient one. Look at these readings. It contains self-renewing energy. If activated, it could restore the planet's systems, air, soil, everything." Daniel leaned forward. "You mean this small thing could bring Zirath back to life?" Lynn nodded. "Yes, but it needs to be returned to its temple roots in the old capital. Without that link, it's just a stone." Daniel stared at the glowing crystal. He thought about Lura and her daughters. She had given up the one thing that could save her people, just to feed her children for a few days. His chest felt heavy. He opened his communicator and recorded a message for Earth Command. "Captain Daniel Ward, mission report. Discovered possible planetary restoration artifact on Zerath. Requesting full relief clearance. Repeating, this world can be saved. Hours later, the answer came. Request pending review. Bureaucracy again. Always slow, always cautious. Daniel paced the floor of his cabin, his thoughts restless. He could not forget the image of those two girls eating with trembling hands, their faces thin but filled with light. He looked at the crystal again, its soft glow filling the room. He could keep it. He could study it. It would bring him credit, even fame. But deep down, he already knew what he had to do. The next morning, he walked to the command deck. Prepare the ship, he said to his crew. We're going to start something bigger. If command won't help us, we'll begin it ourselves. His crew exchanged uncertain glances. Sir, that's against orders, Lynn said carefully. Then consider it a human order, Daniel replied with a quiet smile. We're not here to take, we're here to give back. Outside, the sun broke weakly over the ruined horizon. In the distance, Lura's daughters played near their small shelter, laughing softly. For the first time in years, the sound of laughter touched Zerath again. Daniel looked toward them through the dusty glass of the viewport. We'll bring it all back, he whispered. Not just for them, but for everyone who ever lost hope. And deep inside his ship, the ancient crystal pulsed with faint light, as if it too had heard his promise. The human ship stayed on Zerath longer than expected. Captain Daniel Ward refused to leave until he found a way to help the dying planet. Each day he sent reports to Earth Command, asking for permission to begin a full restoration operation. Each day the answer was the same, request pending. But Daniel was not a man who waited when lives were at stake. He and his small team worked tirelessly. They scanned the soil, tested the air, and collected samples from the withered plants. His science officer Lynn confirmed again and again that the crystal Lura had traded was the key. If placed in its original temple core, it could restart the planet's natural energy. It was designed by ancient builders to keep the world alive. Without it, the planet's life systems had failed centuries ago. Daniel knew what that meant. Lura had not only sold her family's last treasure, she had unknowingly given up the one thing that could save her entire race. When he looked out from his camp each night, he could see the small lights of the alien shelters in the distance. Among them was Lura's home, where her daughters played quietly with little toys made from scrap metal. They waved whenever his patrol passed. One night, his ship's light beams caught them sitting near a small fire, sharing a single piece of bread. The sight stayed with him long after he returned to his cabin. The next morning, Daniel made a choice. We're not waiting for permission anymore, he told his crew. Prepare the transports. We're rebuilding Zerath, Lynn frowned. Sir, command will not like this. Daniel smiled slightly. They don't have to. Sometimes doing the right thing means breaking a few quiet rules. They started by helping the villages. The humans shared their rations, taught the aliens how to grow nutrient moss in soil trays, and built small water purifiers from their ship's spare parts. In the beginning, the aliens stayed away, suspicious and silent. But when they saw the humans working beside them, carrying heavy crates, fixing walls, and giving food to their children, their fear began to fade. Lura was the first to step forward. She offered what little help she could, carrying containers, organizing lines, and guiding those who were too weak. Daniel watched her quietly as she moved through the crowd, calm and determined. She worked harder than anyone, and when she smiled at her daughters eating, he knew every risk he took was worth it. 2 weeks passed. One evening, Daniel called Lura to the command tent. The crystal sat glowing faintly on the table. This belongs to your world, he said. Do you know where it came from? Lura looked at it with wide eyes. It is from the old temple in the capital ruins, she whispered. Our ancestors said it once gave light to the land. But it went dark long ago. Daniel nodded. We think it can still work. If we take it there, it might heal the planet. Lura's hands trembled. The capital is far, across the broken lands. Storms, bandits, radiation zones. No one goes there anymore. Daniel stood up. Then we'll go together. The journey took 3 days. They traveled through silent valleys where old cities lay buried under sand and ash. Broken towers rose like bones against the horizon. The air shimmered with heat. Lura guided the way, her daughters staying behind at the camp for safety. On the third evening, a massive storm hit. Winds roared like wild beasts. The ground shook and lightning burned across the clouds. The crew's shields barely held. The transport shook violently and one of the engines failed. We can't land, Lynn shouted. Daniel looked out through the shaking window. He saw a faint light in the distance, a spire, half buried, glowing faintly. That's it, he said. The temple. They forced the ship down on rough ground, sliding across the cracked soil until it stopped. Daniel and Laura stepped out into the storm, holding the crystal close. Every step was hard. Sand cut at their skin. Their suits warned of low visibility. Finally, they reached the temple gates. Carvings of ancient figures lined the walls worn by centuries of dust. In the center stood a broken pedestal with faint wires running through it. Laura placed her hands on the cold stone. This is where it once stood, she said softly. Daniel nodded and set the crystal in place. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a low hum filled the air. The ground vibrated. The carvings began to glow. Streams of light moved through the temple like rivers awakening after a long sleep. Outside, the storm began to weaken. The sky shifted from gray to a deep blue. Daniel and Laura stepped out and saw something no one on Xyrath had seen in years. A single green sprout pushing through the dirt. By the next day, the change spread like a wave. Clouds formed naturally, releasing gentle rain. The dry rivers began to flow again. The machines from the human ships helped spread the energy, restoring air and soil balance. Plants began to grow where there had been only dust. When they returned to the settlement, the people gathered around in silence. Then cheers broke out as rain touched their faces. Children ran barefoot in the mud, laughing. Laura fell to her knees, holding her daughters close, tears mixing with the rain. Daniel watched quietly. One of the little girls ran up to him and handed him a small flower, bright yellow, the first one grown on Xyrath in centuries. For you, she said shyly. He smiled and took it gently. Thank you, little one. This is the most precious gift I've ever received. Over the next weeks, the humans worked side by side with the aliens to rebuild homes and farms. The bond between the two species grew strong. No longer were humans seen as outsiders. They were called the Restorers. When the time came for Daniel to leave, the whole colony gathered to see him off. Laura stood in front holding a small shard from the crystal that had saved their world. She offered it to him with both hands. This is for you, she said softly. A part of our world, a reminder that kindness can return what was lost. Daniel accepted it, bowing his head. Keep your hope alive, he said. Humans and Xyrathi, our futures are tied now. As his ship rose into the sky, the fields below glowed green under the new sun. Rivers glittered like silver ribbons. Children waved from the hills. Laura's daughters shouted his name, their laughter echoing through the air. Daniel looked out the window, smiling faintly. We didn't just give them food, he whispered. We gave them tomorrow. Deep in the restored temple, the great crystal pulsed steadily, spreading warmth across the world. And for the first time in living memory, Xyrath lived again.